Hi everyone. Welcome to the first event of Institute OD's week-long celebration of certification. None other than Global OD Certification Week. Yay! So Global OD Certification Week is dedicated to recognizing the transformative power of organizational development, as well as honoring the dedication of professionals like you who are committed to enhancing their expertise in the field. So it also serves as a rallying point for individuals and organizations alike, highlighting the value of continuous learning and professional development and driving organizational success. So feel free to register for all of our other exciting events that are coming up this week. Tomorrow, the Tuesday, the 21st, we have our IOD meet and greet. So if you have any questions about certification or you're looking to develop your career, but you're not exactly sure how, we have IOD alumni who are coming on to answer all your questions and share their journeys in the field of organization development. So if that's helpful for you, feel free to register for that and make some cool connections while you're at it. And then on Wednesday, we actually have our keynote speaker, David Cooper Ryder. He's going to be delivering a presentation on the future of organization development and the need for OD in the environment and the future of conservation and all that good stuff. So feel free to register because you don't want to miss what he has to say about that. And lastly, on Friday, we have a really interesting event with two African leaders who are paving the way of organization development in their fields and their specific communities. So follow us on social media and tune in to giodn.org to learn more about Global OD Certification Week and all of the awesome events that we have coming up, as well as giveaways, scholarship announcements, and all that awesome stuff. This podcast proudly features our host, Dr. Nancy Zentis, CEO of the Institute of Organization Development, and special guest, Chris Crosby, CEO of the Leadership Institute of Seattle. Chris offers over 30 years of experience across various sectors, leveraging non-traditional methods and systems theory to drive organizational success. His approach focuses on strategic alignment, ensuring every part of the organization works harmoniously for sustained success. He excels in facilitating generative conversations that foster growth, like this one, teaching employees to navigate challenges effectively. So let's learn more about Chris's journey and why he believes so strongly in the value of professional development. After you, Dr. Nancy.
All right. Chris, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here and
Thank
for
you.
kicking off our Global OD Certification Week. We're so excited. And just a little known fact about Chris and I that how we found out that we knew each other was that one of my dear friends actually knew his dad and he was her uncle by marriage, I believe. And in what was it, in the 1950s? So I met Chris at a conference and we realized, I told him how I knew his dad. So then we started calling each other brother and sister after that. And we've been connected ever since, but I know, right? So we're brother and sister for organization development because we live and breathe organization development. We love organization development, and it's been, a part of our life for most of our career. So I want you to know about the work that Chris does with his family, his brother Gil and his dad Robert, who they fondly call Bing Crosby. If anyone's ever Bing Crosby. But Chris, I know people would be excited to know about, what have you been doing in your career? What are some of the things that, you're really passionate about, and how did you start off? And, just give us a overview of your career and how you got started and what you love about it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Should I call you sister or Nancy?
or doctor. I don't know, whatever you want.
Well, you mentioned it. My father has been in the field for a long time. And in fact, by the time I was born, 1964, which is now quite a while ago, I'll be 60 this year. He had been in this thing called a T group for over 10 years by the time I was born, which the T group was invented by Kurt Lewin in 1946. And father had his first T group in Boston University in 1953 by a guy named Walter Holcomb, I believe. I sometimes don't get all the names correct. But Will Holcomb was a direct descendant of John Dewey, and Kurt Lewin and John Dewey both were like kins, even though they didn't really know each other. But they both believe democracy must be learned anew in each generation. And that's sort of the foundation of organization development. Organization development came out of World War II. And just a lot of work was done back then. But so I really actually didn't know what I was getting into. I just knew that I needed some personal development when I was about 29. And I went into this program called the Leadership Institute of Seattle that was started by Robert Crosby. Sometimes I just call him Dad or Papa, so they'll bear with me on that. Anyways, I knew it was going to be good for me. So I in 1993, I went after a master's degree in managing and consulting, which is their OD track. And I graduated in 96. And in 97, I actually ended up with the counseling track as well. So I have 2 masters from the same school, the very school that I am now trying to restart. We have a master's degree in leadership and organization development that's pending with the state as we speak. From there, I learned a lot of my dad's history. And one thing I learned that he had a mentor named Ronald Lippett. I think you were talking about maybe Mary Lippett. Yeah. I think you were talking about. And
he's a dear friend of ours also.
Yes. So Ronald Lippett was Dad's mentor for 29 years, and he happened to be Kurt Lewin's, like, one of his top graduate students. And he was there in Connecticut when the T group was invented, and he worked with Dad for a long time, and Dad talked to him and mentored him for all those years. Well, then Dad became my mentor. In 1998, I got a job internally at Alcoa, a division called Closure Systems International. We made small bottle caps. And so I became I can't remember my title. It was something like Organization Development Specialist for North America. So there was 10 plants that I could play in. And at the time, Father's consulting firm was doing a little bit of work. So they were doing T groups. We have a T group that's adapted for industry. If you know the history of the T group, which just stands for training and sensitivity to group process, it's an experiential learning activity where people learn from their interactions with each other and begin to look at their own patterns. And it's the basis of the Leadership Institute of Seattle and the basis of a lot of the consulting work that I do within organizations. But Dad was doing some of that work in Alcoa CSI, and then I was able to go in, and it was my playground to learn really OD. And then I had the good fortune, and anybody that could have a good fortune of this, get a mentor and talk to them about what you're doing and how you're doing it and how to set it up and how to design it. And I had the good fortune of having Dad. I was available. He was available to me all the time. So I talked to him almost daily when I was there for those 8 years, less and less as it went along, as I knew how to do things as I went along. But he coached me in how to do conflict resolutions, how to do work group stuff, how to do projects. And early on, I worked on major R&D projects that were failing. And the first year I was there, they hadn't completed any. And the next year, with me working with every one of those projects, they completed 6 projects in 1 year, up from 0 the year before. And these were projects that if CSI didn't complete them, they would have lost a lot of market share. So how did I do it? Well, we brought everybody together that actually works on the project. So that's one of the basic tenets for me of OD. You work with the people doing the work, you bring them together, And then we did a very structured process where they used a Lewinian way of thinking called force field analysis to look at all the things that are keeping them from being successful. And then another structured brainstorming process to develop actions to address all those and anything else. And then they put it on a large timeline, coordinated. So say there was 60 people in the room, they coordinated it all in a master timeline at the end of the day, as well as they looked at macro components of change, meaning how are decisions made? How do the managers understand what's going on? What plan do we have in place? And by the end of those 2 days, they would know who's doing what. They'd know how they were going to support it. They'd know how they were going to follow up. And I worked on about, I would say, over those 8 years, I worked on some 20 projects. All of them succeeded. So when I got out of CSI and I found out that only 75% of projects fail or something like that, some of these statistics that people throw around, I thought, what the heck are people doing? How come they're being so unsuccessful? Because, there's tried and true ways to how projects succeed. And it's not something anybody has to invent. The technology is there. It's basic organization development. It's my father's life work. And I've written it up in a couple of books that I wrote. One's called Strategic Engagement, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 2 has the actual planning session on it. So then I worked internally there for 8 years. 4 of the years I was embedded on a software implementation called Oracle. Most people understand Oracle, and most people have had probably horror stories. Well, we implemented 20 some locations in 4 years over 11 countries. And I set up the whole change process, meaning I helped create a decision-making process on whether we're ready to move from event to event and to go live. And I had the end users heavily involved in that. I had the decision being made from the business, not the IT group. The IT group actually facilitated it, which is quite different. And we missed 0 shipment in 4 years, and we were stable within a month every go live.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The business unit that went before us had 50% on-time delivery for a year, and their decision-making process was the IT team told the top leadership, "Oh, we're ready to turn it live," and without all the feedback from the people doing it. So, software systems can get implemented without a lot of pain, even though it takes a lot of work. But using basic OD principles that will always be applicable. So,
isn't it amazing? It's been out there for so long, and we just really need to get people to understand what it's all about. So tell us about what kind of training do you think that people need in order to gain like the experience? You did a lot of on the job, and you had your dad and mentoring, and
yeah.
so. But what about the rest of us that have to kind of learn by the seat of our pants? What do you think what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, to me, there's tried and true things that people need to get trained in, but I want people to think about OD as a huge toolkit of a lot of different things to do. And I want them to learn a lot of different things. I think people get in trouble when they think this is the one way to do something. And so one of the things I think the genius of Robert Crosby, my father, is that he learned and learned and learned and learned and learned. And by the time, I was in the field, he had 1,000 different ways of solving things. And it wasn't just, nail, large hammer. And so I get worried if somebody says, like dialogic OD is the only way, or any OD fad is the only way, then they're too one-dimensional. And I want people, so take different trainings. Certainly learn action research, because action research can be applied in multiple ways. So I know your certificate is just really heavy in action research. That is tried and true, Kurt Lewin. You get the people doing the work actually solving the problems themselves. And then there's a ton of different ways to branch that off, and you can make all sorts of implications to how to do it. But also I want people to learn, be in a T group, be in multiple T groups, be in as many as you can. I'm biased towards Leadership Institute of Seattle's T groups because it's a T group that's adapted for organizations. It's part of the change strategy that I use. And we break a lot of rules that traditional T groups say you can't, like you can't have boss employees together. Well, guess what? When you do, they actually learn together and then transfer the learning immediately. So I think not having them together is a bigger problem than having them together. But that's aside. What I want people to learn is what is their reaction to authority, bosses, and can they broaden their perspective to see value in all sorts of types of leading, and then begin to help people that are a little too harsh as a leader be softer. But also I want them to be able to help people that are a little too soft as a leader be harder. And so there's a whole continuum there. I want people to learn what is their beliefs about conflict. How do they have such harsh judgments about it that they always avoid it? How can they learn healthy ways to help groups deal with conflict? Because there will always be conflict. There will always be leaders. There will always be people that have less authority. There will always be a need to help push that downward. And effective OD professionals or just effective leaders really need to get clear about that and then help people work through it in a productive, healthy way.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to learn more about how, you said you went through Lyle's, how do you say it? Maybe I'm not saying it.
Leo's.
Yes. And then I know that a couple years ago you're building it back up again. So can you tell us about that and what are you doing, and just give us the lowdown on it, because I think
Sure. Sure. Well, the lowdown is, I got basically the rights to Leo's after it closed. I believe there was, in some ways, some unintentional mismanagement of the program, and the school that it was affiliated with at the end was forcing, for instance, all the instructors to be PhDs, and it's a practitioner heavy taught school. So I don't want PhDs. I want people that have, maybe a master's degree, but then are out there in the field doing work, because I want people to learn practical ways to help organizations. And I don't want it to be totally academic driven. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just got the rights and I slowly did everything that I needed to get Leo's together, and then applied for a master's degree. And I also applied for a certificate program, which we have. It's a certificate in leadership and organization development. Although we teach aspects of action research, it's not an only action research. It's a T group based learning environment. So really, Leo's is about experiential education and learning through relationships. It's not about lectures. It's not about just theories. It's you learn as much or more from your fellow classmates than you do from the instructors. And then it's really, how am I as an effective leader? I wrote this down earlier today. I'm in the business of training emotionally intelligent leaders and practitioners. I want people that know how to create engaged workplaces that utilize all the hearts and minds of the employees, especially where the problems exist. There's a lot of organizations that just take their experts and impose solution after solution. And they never really solve things correctly because the people that are doing the work there aren't really engaged. I want organizations to get extraordinary results. And, I already talked about the T group. I want people to take T groups, learn in T groups, and Leo's is T group based. So once we get the master's degree authorized, you'll be in a T group the first week of every year. It's a 6 residential a year structure, and there's work in between. So there's just a lot of time face to face with students learning, and then you'll learn basics of process consulting, basics of there'll be a little Barry Oshry like marketplace at one point where you'll learn the base. How am I an effective organizational leader? How can I be an effective organizational member? And how can I be an effective either practitioner or overall leader? So
Really great. Well, I was wondering also, are you thinking about what do you feel is the future for those of us who are professionals in the field of OD? And do you
yeah.
see new possibilities out there?
Well, this is a question. Actually, I did a talk with your group a little while ago where I basically said, worrying too much about the future is not all that important. I think, because here's the thing. I believe that the principles of tried and true OD is really will always matter. Clarity of authority, process consulting, action research, systems thinking, how do I involve the right people to solve the right stuff, and conflict utilization. As long as there's humans, and I hope there will always be humans that have to talk to each other, there's going to be issues that need to be worked through, and there's going to be need to have people do it in useful ways. Now, I do think that organization development at a certain level is getting more sort of mainstream. And so there are more opportunities for people to do the work in more workplaces. So I think as a field, it's sort of growing, yet some of the tried and true stuff I think could be getting lost. So I just believe as long as there's humans on the planet, there'll be a great need for this work.
Yeah, I'm nervous about losing some of the, the research methodology and some of the things that really made us, what we are, the work based on the work of Kurt Lewin and the whole thing around change management, all these, all the different change management techniques so I don't think you can force change on people, but I love your approach, and I really think it's important. I actually came out of OD from the field of quality circles.
Yeah.
And Edward Deming in the 80s. And that's why I just love the action research model, because to me, his problem solving model just really fits in nicely into the action research model. And so I just don't want people, I want people to know that we have to help an organization through the process of change by helping them create their own way of dealing with change and what's whatever right for them, not forcing it on them. So I think that, I bet you most people have never been through a T group, and it's an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And I really think that we need that to be really fully human, and also to be mindful of other people. So I'm excited about what you're saying. So so just say, like, what do you think that people need if they wanted to, become a consultant like you? What would you recommend for them if they wanted to go into the field of OD consulting?
Well, take some T groups for sure. Understand the difference between a process consultant and an expert consultant. It's almost this simple. A process consultant runs a group in a certain way to help the group learn about their own situation. And an expert consultant goes in, talks to a bunch of people, and then tells people the answer. And so that's not OD, that's expert consulting. And so make sure that you're not being trained that way in OD, because really you could just go to work for McKinsey if you wanted to, or something like that. And there's enough horror stories about how they go in, charge thousands and thousands of dollars, and mess up a lot of organizations. Surely they've done good work at times too, or they wouldn't still be in existence. And I'm not saying expert consultants aren't needed sometimes, especially in technical things. You just need somebody that understands like how to fix the machine right or something like that. But that's important. And then I think you need to just build your toolbox about how do I help a work team get better? How do I help two people work through conflict? How do I help groups in conflict? And how do you run a process to do that? And there's ways to get that training. Certainly, we have a certificate program right now that gives you all that type of training. And then the master's degree will do that in spades. The second piece is look at yourself, look at your history, look at your patterns, and understand that I have come to believe certain things because of my social conditioning. And it's almost more about where I was born dictates how I believe things more than anything else, and what family I was born in. So that's one way that T groups can help you begin to deconstruct. Okay, so there isn't the sort of right and wrong necessarily. There's how I learn, and how strongly am I holding these beliefs? How can I hold them a little looser and see value in different things? Now, I'm not saying let go of ethics and morals. Ethics and morals are really important. One of my favorite quotes from John Dewey is something like, it's really important directionally how you teach people, because you can teach people how to rob people well. You can teach people how to be excellent burglars and things like that. But that's not right. You got to teach people how to help better the world. So directionally, make sure you're learning how to help organizations be healthier. But there are ways to do that.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much. That really appreciate your thoughts, and I'm sure it's going to really help a lot of people, and get people interested in ongoing, furthering their career and ongoing development, which I know we've all both been in ongoing continuous development through our entire life. I'm a little bit older than you.
Just a little bit.
But I just still want to learn, and I think it's really important. So for us to continue to build our profession. I'm glad you talked about the process consulting, the work of Edgar Schein.
Yeah.
He has passed on now, but he was with many years, and he did some really wonderful work. And so certainly your organization, we wish you the best success with that. And so anyways, anything that you want to just kind of end this podcast with, something you want to say to everybody that will inspire them to continue on or enter into the field of organization development?
Well, I think it's a great field. Like, if my dad worked till he was 90, and he told me just the other day, I didn't work till I was 90 because I thought it was work. I worked till I was 90 because I love it. I mean, it's an interesting field because you get to see people grow right in front of you, get healthier right in front of you, do amazing work right in front of you. And, I don't know what better to feel good about than that. And you can help people work through conflicts that have been hating each other for like 10 years and figure out that, it was a misunderstanding here and there. And then they can start working together. I've done stuff like that. So it's just, it's a beautiful field. By the way, Edgar Schein and Robert Crosby were developing quite the friendship near the end of their lives, and they would Zoom for every month. And there is my father wrote a paper called Dinner with Edgar that is published now out in the OD, I think it's the OD Review. That it's a fun paper if anybody wants to read it.
Maybe that can be a movie. You're like the one with Einstein and
well, they had interesting lives because they have similar beliefs in a lot of things, but one of them was an academic and the other was a practitioner primarily. So it's, like if Edgar was 80-20 academic, Dad was 80-20 practitioner. And so they had these differences that they were talking about. And in that book, in that paper, they talk about it. I might be able to get you a copy that you can let people see. Yeah.
I'd love that. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and thanks for kicking off our event this week. And it's we truly appreciate your time and your wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's an honor, and I hope you have a wonderful week. You've got a great, lineup, and so
we'll see you again. We'll see you soon.
It's a deal. That's true. And I think October or something like that.
Definitely. We'll see you
All right.
as a speaker on our GIODN. Okay,
Oop,
take
oop.
care.
Bye-bye.
I know.
Wow, a special thank you again to our guest speaker, Chris Crosby. And we ended that podcast on a beautiful note, discussing the power of friendship. So, in organization development. So we appreciate you taking the time to educate our listeners on the value of higher learning and professional development as well, Chris. So if you'd like more information on how you can boost your career with professional development certification programs, you can visit instituteod.com. And to register for the Global OD Certification Week events happening all throughout this week, visit giodn.org. Thank you so much for tuning into